Oh my gosh, there are so many big news stories going into Christmas week. I can't wait to go through them. Today, I have a special guest, independent journalist Ivory Hecker. Ivory, thank you so much for joining me.
Great to be with you.
So, just some background on Ivory. She did corporate journalism for almost a decade, and then she was calling out her boss and basically reporting on the fact that I believe it was Fox News was not giving accurate information that bothered you as a journalist. You called it out, and then ended up being let go. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. So she has courage. She's got brains, and I'm excited to go through all of this with her. This morning, I woke up, I read something a little bit shocking. Democrat Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania says, if you are rooting against Donald Trump at this point, you are rooting against America. What are your thoughts on his comments? What are your thoughts on is this true? Is at this point, is rooting against Trump actually rooting against your country?
Rooting against Trump, rooting against your country. Wow, I'm surprised. So that would mean that that would mean he's pro-Trump now, or he's perhaps trying to create unity. I'm shocked to hear that because Trump is definitely enemy number one of both the Democrats and the mainstream media. And so I was going to tell people, because a lot of people on the right now are very optimistic that, okay, when people see Trump in action these next 4 years, it's going to be complete unity. That the left is going to be convinced and we're all going to come together for Republicans. And I love that optimism, but I just don't think it's going to play out quite that way, because he was in office for 4 years and we had a fantastic economy, no new wars, things were going great, but the media was smearing him, and Democrats were feeding the media talking points to smear him like we'd never seen before. And I just really expect that things will probably continue into his next 4 years with that sort of tone. So for Fetterman to say rooting against Trump is rooting against America actually kind of proves me wrong so far. So far, that's a Democrat kind of saying, let's get behind Trump. What do you think?
I'm not going to lie. I was a little bit surprised, but he's said surprising things in the past. So I don't know if maybe he's been red pilled just a little bit, and he just wants what's good for the country. I'm not really sure because I don't know him that well. But I guess one example that I could maybe relate to is I regularly pray for the president, right? Even though I'm not a fan of Joe Biden, I want him to do what's right for the country. I hope that his heart will be softened. And the reason that I do that is I kind of feel like hoping and praying that the pilot of your airplane has issues is like praying that your airplane goes down and crashes and burns, right? And so even though I don't love Joe Biden, I am praying and hoping he will do the right thing. But at the same time, my eyes are open to the fact that I disagree on a very high level with many of the ways that he behaves. So I don't know. Maybe there's something there where Senator Fetterman is saying, "Listen, let's be real, Democrats. We got to fix the border. Let's be real. We've got to end these wars." Where many of his colleagues are saying, keep the wars going, give them all the money they need, let illegals come into the country. I don't know. Maybe he's touching on some of those issues where there's overlap.
Yeah, and he's from a swing state, and he knows a lot of his constituents are Trump supporters. So maybe he's trying to win back some more of his own support in his own state.
That's a good point. Maybe he's pulling a Joe Manchin, right, where he's a Democrat in West Virginia, but most of the people that vote for him are Republicans. So yeah, that's actually an interesting point. Okay, this is another one that caught me off guard, Ivory. According to the Daily Mail, First Lady Jill Biden is urging her husband, President Biden, to burn it all down before he leaves office, meaning take out the political careers of those who did him wrong. So this would be people like Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, former President Barack Obama. Would you like to see him spill the secrets of these Democrat leaders that did him wrong, or at least make their careers difficult, maybe block insider trading for members of Congress? What are your thoughts on him getting revenge in these last 30 days?
Oh, I think a lot of Americans would love to see this. I mean, it was interesting. Suddenly, so many. When this happened, there was basically a coup against Biden within his own party. A bunch of Republicans kind of had his back all of a sudden, and I know a lot of those Republicans would love to see him go after his own party and call these people out, or at least, why, I know it's a good old boys club, but why have these guys back when they definitely didn't have yours? Of course, he can't do, he probably cannot do like prosecutions of people just because they did him wrong. But yeah, he could definitely spill some secrets about people, or, go to a press conference and say some secrets. We want to hear it.
Yeah. On the one hand, I'm sure he feels like his hands are a little bit tied, right? Because he does have a reason to be very mad at a lot of Democrats. They did a coup within the United States and pushed a sitting president out. On the other hand, he's got a lot of family crimes that he needs to just be blanketed over, swept under the rug. Let's not investigate Ukraine. Let's not investigate money from China, from Romania. Let's not question forgiving my son Hunter for 11 years, blanket immunity for everything he's done, including sneezing wrong. Like, I don't know. I feel like he's kind of caught between a rock and a hard place there.
That is such a good point. Yeah, he could do these deathbed confessionals, but he's got to look out for the next generation, his family. I know he cares about Hunter. So the chances that he'll go too hard on them might not be too big.
I guess maybe the best thing he could do was just privately vote for Trump. It sure seems Jill Biden voted for him. She comes out on election day in a bright red Republican pantsuit. She and Trump meet up over in Europe at the Notre Dame Cathedral. She's giving him eyes and smiling like this should be Hitler. This should be the biggest enemy of your family. And there you are flirting and smiling. I don't know. I think maybe the Bidens voted for Trump.
I feel like they did too. Who else would wear head to toe red on election day when you're a Democrat? I've worked in newsrooms full of Democrats, and they never wear red on election day. So, yeah, I think that's what happened. But more than that, I think that coup that the American people saw put a bad taste in the mouth of Democrat voters, seeing their own party go against their guy and forcing the voters to vote for someone that they didn't like. Biden wasn't popular, but Kamala was definitely less popular, and the Democrats forced their voters to vote for her. So I think more than Biden being upset, I think the American people are upset about that.
Yeah, I would agree with you. All right, I want to break a story with your help that I think my audience will find very interesting. I know that you talked about this over on your Twitter feed. So Elon Musk has called for a basic cognitive test for elected officials after it was discovered that Representative Granger, who hasn't been seen in Congress for 6 months, has actually been getting care in a dementia patient care facility. On top of that, you wrote about Harris County tax assessor Ann Harris Bennett, who controls the county's voter registration. She hasn't gone to work in over 4 years. Like, what is going on? We have members of Congress that we believe are receiving a high salary, much higher than the average American. We believe that they're doing what's right for the country. And it seems like they're just collecting a paycheck until their dying breath. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a great idea what Elon Musk recommended, because some of these stories, like these are huge for the American people's well-being, but they're boring stories for the news to tell. So the TV news doesn't typically cover stories like this, like, oh, this important elected official is missing, because it's not sensational enough, it's not visual enough, it's not going to go viral enough that this person just hasn't been doing their job and maybe they're having health issues. But it matters greatly to the American people. And so to have independent voices like yourself amplify these stories more when they're not getting covered by the corporate media shows us that, we're throwing away our vote for someone who's not even cognitive enough to understand what our needs are as the constituents. And that person with, mental disabilities or whatever's going on in their life is probably being used as a pawn by lobbyists and powerful special interests who probably go against the American people's concerns. And maybe that's why every election cycle, it seems like my viewers are in my comments are just baffled that why aren't any of these people actually standing up for what I voted for? Like every time they say, I promise I'm finally going to make these changes for you, and they never do. Why do they change once they're in office? Well, there's not enough watchdog eyes on what's really going on with these elected officials.
Yeah, we do need more vigilance. When I saw that, I was like blown away. I'm like, okay, hold on. This lady, like, where were the other members of Congress going? Hey, where's so-and-so? She's been absent for 6 months. Oh, she's in a dementia hospital. Like, she doesn't even remember that she's a member of Congress. And, you're feeling this. I know I'm feeling this. A lot of Americans are feeling this. Inflation was out of control because Biden was putting out literally trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars of spending. Meanwhile, you have Senator Dianne Feinstein that they were wheeling into Congress and having to tell her, vote now. Oh, what am I voting for? Just raise your hand, right? Like they literally were using her as a meat puppet. The Democrat Party has been using Biden as a meat puppet. It just broke last week while I was down in Phoenix at America Fest with Charlie Kirk, that members of the White House have known that Biden was mentally deficient since day one of his presidency, and they've covered it up. And the media hasn't had the intestinal fortitude to question why we have a commander in chief walking around with a nuclear football and he's mentally deficient. I don't know. This is all just so crazy to me.
Right. But the independent media and the right-wing media, they were covering Biden's blunders the whole way. And that's the great thing about this new era we're in is even while the old flagship corporate media outlets were covering for Biden, they couldn't get around the fact that independent media were like, I watched his presser and I saw him do, it was like a different language, and I'm going to post that clip. And so the American people who were paying attention knew. And when Democrats finally admitted, it wasn't until after that first debate with Trump that Democrats and CNN, and they were all like, yeah, it's bad. Biden's not all there. And I think for most American people, that wasn't a surprise.
Yeah. My favorite one was in the Rose Garden. President Biden said, I can sum up America in one word. Like couldn't even get out one word about what America means. Like, does it mean liberty? Does it mean hope? Does it mean freedom? Like what is it that you're trying to say? He couldn't even get it out. Do you think, Ivory, that this is why there's so much backlash now on left-leaning media? For example, MSNBC, I mean, they are in the spotlight right now. I'm over the weekend, I'm getting more views as a YouTuber than MSNBC. Like if I were their sponsors, I would be like, why are we paying millions and millions of dollars to not get in front of eyeballs? ABC News is struggling. CNN, I mean, like, I think I read there's like Food Magazine and Lifetime Movies are getting more eyeballs than CNN, a nationally recognized news network. Is this the backlash that people are going, okay, you've been caught lying, you've been caught pushing a narrative, you're not truth tellers anymore, we're going somewhere else?
Oh yeah, I think so. Especially in the era of Donald Trump, some of the lies about Trump were just a little too blatant. And then on top of that, the pandemic and the lies about the pandemic, things like Ivory. Actually, I was about to say a drug that we're not allowed to talk about on YouTube.
Oh, you can say ivermectin now.
Oh, you can? Oh, you can. Oh, okay, great.
Yeah, in fact, a new study was just released that hydroxychloroquine had huge positive ramifications against fighting COVID, but the news isn't going to cover that. I will, though.
Right. So I think it was so blatant. And when independent people like Joe Rogan, whose ratings just destroy any of the cable news by far, when he's shedding light on the obvious truth, and they're not only lying about its effectiveness, but they're calling it fake names like horse paste. It became just too blatant to a lot of people, and ended up waking a lot of people up. And even to today, we have like Stephen A. Smith from ESPN just went on a rant tirade about the Democrats and the mainstream media being deceptive about January 6th. Turns out there were dozens of federal informants amongst the crowd, and Stephen A. Smith is upset that you guys were telling us this wasn't true, and it was true. So the lies and the deception just there's been so much lately, and I think that's why The Wrap just came out with an article that you probably saw. I tweeted that 36,000 job cuts in corporate media just in 2023 to 2024. That's compared to 7,000 job cuts the previous 2 years. So, more than 300% increase in job cuts just these past 2 years. The people can't take it anymore. It's so misleading. And then you see the authenticity on independent media. On top of that, yeah, since the viewers are turning to YouTubers like yourself, that is where the advertisers are turning. And so CNN's not getting its ads anymore. They're having to do these layoffs. The CNN alone did more layoffs this year. So huge shifts happening in the corporate media, thanks to the operation of the free market. The invisible hand of the free market is working, and this should be very hopeful to the American people. I know people on the right, they've gotten a habit of being kind of pessimistic. It seems like everything's against us, but that is not the case. We're witnessing the shift happening right now in the media to independent free voices who aren't controlled. Now, I will say that AP came out with an article recently explaining that with this shift in viewership to Instagrammers and TikTokers, pharmaceutical industry has controlled its narrative through feeding a bunch of money into CNN and Fox, so that CNN and Fox won't say anything bad about pharmaceuticals. Well, that industry is very quickly, they're smart, they're switching to influencers. Big Pharma is saying, hey, YouTuber, can I pay you money to say nice things about Big Pharma? So will that shift in, will the independent media stay transparent, or will they get bought out like the corporate media? I think it's going to be harder to buy them out, because the independent media is all these individual people, not big corporations. So I think it's a hopeful time in the history of the news.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you from personal experience, during the lockdowns, Pfizer offered me $30,000 for 60 seconds of work to tell my people to go, please get the vaccine, get the miracle shot. I told them to go to hell. No, thank you. My integrity is way more important than $30,000. But I got to admit, man, $30,000 for 60 seconds of work. I mean, that would have been pretty incredible, but I couldn't gain the world and lose my soul. And so I just told them, no way, no. And I agree with you. There's like this new wave, like I think every generation appreciates truth and authenticity, but this new upcoming generation, they really appreciate authenticity. And I had somebody come up to me at America Fest, and they said, I can't fully understand why you get more views than a lot of the mainstream media, because your video quality is terrible. And I was like, wasn't sure how to take that, and I said, well, maybe people care more about the truth than 4K. And they're like, you think? And I was like, yes, I don't actually think it. I know for a fact people want the facts and people want the truth. So anyway, I've been living through it myself. I have people that come to me asking me to pitch a miracle potion or some gadget or big pharma or whatever. And I just have to say, you know what? No, thanks. I would rather earn the trust of my people than earn that paycheck. But yeah, you make a really good point that people need to realize. In fact, I read on Vigilant News Network that, what was it? It was over 40% of nutritional and fitness influencers are actually bought by big food. So they're actually now, big food is moving into the health guru, the fitness expert space. So people need to be very careful if they're hearing something from somebody that they've trusted, that now all of a sudden, they need to go buy some miracle pill or something like that. I don't know. It's going to be really interesting, but I agree with you. I think there is some optimism right now that truth is winning right now.
Yeah, I think so. And the interesting thing with corporate news is that the faces of the corporate news a lot of them are in the dark, that they're actually bought out. They're in denial about it because they're not independent, so they're not getting approached by the advertisers directly. And so when their boss turns down and shuts out any story that would criticize big pharma, they don't know why. And so the boss quickly diverts them to some other distracting story. So they spend their days busy covering something else. There's always something happening. And so, and for me, myself, with my years in corporate news, it took a lot in the pandemic for me to realize that I was being used as a tool of deception, because bosses will come up with excuses. Oh, that story is like not visual enough, or I don't think our viewers care about like pharmaceuticals enough to cover it, things like that. And so they'll just keep the corporate news people in the dark. I think if my friends in corporate news knew how much they're controlled and knew how much they're used as a tool for these big special interests, they would leave. More of them would leave. A lot of them are voluntarily leaving, and the ones who don't are getting laid off. But I think that if they realized that, there would be a bigger shift in the media. When you go independent, you start to realize more stuff because you're both the boss and the talent.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. If someone's a newscaster sitting at the desk, like, they're like organize their papers and then they start reading, they may not know the behind the scenes negotiation with Pfizer or Moderna or whatever. And they may not know, we got wind that you're about to break this measles story. No, we're killing it, or we're putting a spin on it. And we've got to go a different direction. So, at the end of the day, businesses have to make money, but there's so many sponsors out there that are looking to get in front of truth seekers that hopefully the mainstream media will either go away or they'll shake it up and become more truthful. Okay, a couple more questions. This was really disturbing to me. So, as you know, there's about 400 to 500,000 missing children with this horrible illegal immigration on our border situation. Over the weekend, head of Department of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas, told Face the Nation, you know, we know where a lot of those kids are, and yes, they are being trafficked, but it's not our job to go get them.
Wow.
So we know there's kids being trafficked. We know there's kids being abused. We know where they are. We're not going to go get them because it's not in our binder of duties. Like, have we lost our sense of humanity? Meanwhile, you have Tom Homan at America Fest screaming on the stage, we're going to find those kids. We're going to prosecute these people. We're going to close the border. I'm not going to look into another 9-year-old's eyes whose soul has left their body for what they had to deal with the cartel. What are your thoughts on Alejandro Mayorkas so callously saying, yeah, we know where these kids are. We're not going to go get them?
He seems to know so clearly that he's never going to face accountability. And there's got to be a way for this guy to face accountability. He should have been impeached long ago. Some of our members of Congress tried to impeach this man, but he was following a lot of Biden's orders. He's following his commander in chief, but he's sadly correct in that it's a different agency. Once these kids, and who organized it this way, that once these kids cross the border, it's a completely different federal agency that handles the kids. So Mayorkas can bring them in and then wipe his hands of any consequences, because now that they stepped onto American soil, it's HHS's problem. So, and that's what happens once the Border Patrol chauffeurs these children in, they hand them over to Health and Human Services, completely different agency. By the way, that's going to be RFK Jr. running that now. So maybe it's up to RFK to save these kids. And it's the Office of Refugee Resettlement within that agency that then takes applications for Americans to say, I want to sponsor this child. I want to have this child in my home. I'm going to pretend I'm their cousin or their aunt or uncle, or maybe their friend. And it was an HHS whistleblower that went to Project Veritas a year or two ago and explained how all this happened, because she was working within HHS and just wondering, she just had this thought like, okay, this person applied and we handed the kid off to this person, but did we double check who this person is who's taking the kid? And turns out a lot of them, she tracked down the addresses. Some of them were gang members and not relatives at all. Project Veritas went further, knocked on doors, and found out, it talked to some of these underage children. And one of them, they have an interview saying that she was being raped. And a lot of the kids were doing child labor for these, just random people who said, I get a free kid who crossed the border illegally, and nobody is going to double check. Nobody's going to find this child. And then a lot of them do just vanish at some point. And so it's a horrific, it's one of the stories that upsets me so much when I cover it. But it's fascinating that it's going to be RFK who might be able to do something about this.
Yeah. Well, I know it's near and dear to Trump's heart. I know it's very close to Tom Homan. He talked about looking into the eyes of these children that he knows what they've been through. And he said that's what wakes him up every morning, is that he does not want any more of those children. So I just, shame on Alejandro Mayorkas for saying, yeah, we know that they're being trafficked. We know exactly where they are, and we're not going to get them. It's just disgraceful. Hopefully he will be held accountable. We've talked a lot about independent media. You do independent journalism and have for a while now. Tell me, you've got a course out where you're trying to help people be, we are the media, this idea that Elon Musk is saying, hey, we're now the new journalists. We're the media. We're the truth tellers. Tell me about that.
Yes, I love that Elon put that out, because when we learned in journalism, so I went to one of the best J schools that actually taught real journalism, and they taught that, there's no difference actually between a citizen journalist and a corporate media journalist under the law. We are allowed to go seek the truth, and it's more clear than ever that it's actually the citizen journalists and the independent journalists who have the freedom to go get the answers for the people. And so it's essential that we have more independent journalists out there now. But just to grab a camera and go cover something without any knowledge on how to do it effectively can backfire. Sometimes you can get into legal trouble because you didn't know the laws, and big ethical issues. You can get into lawsuits, and also you can cover something and wonder why you only got one view on the video. So I wanted to take everything that I have learned and try to expedite other people's success stories, so that if you choose to go into this independent media industry that I'm in, that you're in, that's a wonderful, needed thing in America right now, that you will land on your feet doing this work, that you won't make a fool of yourself, that you'll make impact, that you'll get reach, that people will see your coverage, that you'll make money from it, that the social media platforms won't censor you, that you won't get into legal trouble. And so I wanted to just take everything that I have learned about doing the news effectively, that I've learned from corporate news, weed out the BS, and then take everything that I've learned about being independent, because these J schools, so much that they're teaching now is obsolete. The industry has shifted so much. TV and newspaper are going to be dead real quick. And so we saw with the massive layoffs this year, they're projecting more layoffs next year in the corporate media. So you don't want to get taught, if you're trying to learn journalism, you don't want to be taught the old ways. You want to be integrating this new era that we're in, even including AI. So I spent all year putting this course together in the most concise but thorough way, to teach everything I've learned and that my friends have learned about how to be successful in this industry. And it's freepresscourse.com. And we are launching my next class of students. We did the first class of students this fall. My next class of students starts in January. So freepresscourse.com.
Okay, very cool. I'll put a link to that down below. I know a lot of people would benefit from, time condensing everything that you've learned so that they can hit the ground running. But yeah, I believe we need more independent news, not less. So Ivory Hecker, thank you so much for coming on. If people want to follow you online, what's the best place for me to push them?
Oh, any of the social media. My Instagram's big, real.ivory on Instagram, or my YouTube, Ivory Hecker. Also, my Twitter X is big, Ivory Hecker there as well.
Okay, great. I'll put those direct links down below. Thank you so much for coming on, and I hope you have a great rest of your week.
Great being with you. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you.